Afternoon. It's Thursday, October 31st, and we are sitting with 70 degrees. Time now for the Legal Show, brought to you by the law firm Beatrice Kopp. For the next hour, we answer legal questions, any legal question that you might be faced with. We'll answer. We'll try to point you in the right direction, solve your problem. Straightforward advice. Really, hopefully we can solve your problem. We don't send you a bill, and we give you the best advice we can. So any legal question or legal problem you have, call us right now, 330-729-9977. It's what we do here on Thursday for over 30 years, 330-729-9977, 330-729-9977. On News Radio 570 WKBN, let's go to the law firm where they're sitting around the big table at Beatrice Kopp, and let's see if we have the Kingmaker, Attorney David Beatrice.
Absent.
All right, so let me try one more time. Attorney David Beatrice.
Absent.
Very troubling. Very troubling. All right, so let's go to Attorney Frank Cassis.
Absent.
Okay, let's go next to Attorney Melfi.
Absent.
Absent. Okay, I'm afraid that there's nobody left, is there?
Well, you got one guy left, Ron. Flying solo tonight, brother.
It is the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, the very best family law attorney in my pound for pound on the planet. I think it's the one and only Attorney Mark DeVecchio. Can you find an attorney that's a good guy that has a conscience and a caring attitude? I know what you're thinking, folks. It's impossible. No, I found that. It's Attorney Mark DeVecchio. Hello,
Ron.
Mark.
Hello, Ron. The check's in the mail. You know, and before we get any further, I'd like to send a message out to my neighborhood and the kids in my neighborhood. Please don't egg my house. I'm going to be a little late for Halloween this evening. I do have candy. If you come to my house and nobody answers, put a little note in my mailbox. I'll make sure I get you a candy bag tomorrow. Or come a little bit later, but I will be there with candy at the end of the show.
So you're saying that there's nothing there for you at the present time, right?
Not for the next hour.
All right. So,
but I do happen to have a guest with me today that I'm proud to. I got a handsome young man sitting next to me who's going to be celebrating a birthday tomorrow. My son Giovanni, who needed my credit card to go change the oil in his car, and it's a birthday present. He brought me back my credit card, and I said, "Sit in here for a second and see how we do this show."
Really?
Yeah.
And so he's willing to sit in and see how
we make magic. How we make Thursday magic, Ron.
All right. I am, as we speak, I am sending you, wait a second here. Here we go. I'm sending you what I put out because I'm not home. And, okay, it's coming your way on your cell phone. Check out. This is how I handle it when I'm not home for the kids that are coming trick-or-treating. I just put it out there and take a look at what I've sent you, Mark, if you look at the picture I just sent you.
That was you were my favorite house as a kid.
Right. So if you see, I have describe that picture. That's how I handle it. I put a nice sign on there. It says
one cigarette per kid. Yeah, right. One cig per kid.
A bunch of cigarettes there. And of course, I say with my sign, don't take the lighter.
I left a 12-pack out and just said, please take one.
Is that how it goes? You know what I mean? So there is there's something for you. All right. And Mark, I'm going to send you just before we get going. I'm going to send you what is a copy of my Halloween costume.
I'm afraid to even look at this.
No, I mean it's sending it right to you, Mark, right now as well. I'm going out as a. Did you get my Halloween costume, Mark?
I did. Oh my God. Oh,
you probably
God. Oh my God. I can't even comment. I'm speechless.
That I tried it out last night. How's it look? Pretty good, right? All right.
I have no words.
Thank you. All right, so onward we go. News Radio 570 WKBN. You're on the air with our attorneys tonight. The comedy's behind us. Now we answer legal questions. Caller, you're on the air. First caller. Hello.
Is that me?
Yes, sir, it is.
I got a question. I'm going to be retiring on December 31st. My wife has been on disability, and she had the medical Part A card, but it's never been used because she had to be covered under my insurance. Well, being that she's 5 years younger than me, we called Social Security to set her up to get on Part B when I retire.
Oh, hold on one second. Help me out here. How old are you?
I'm 65.
How old is your wife?
She'll be 61 in February.
All right, now just hang and bear with me for a minute. She'll be 61, you said, right? She's on disability, did you say?
That's correct.
Social Security disability, correct?
Correct.
All right, so
That's
okay, so she's entitled to Medicare. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Even though, all right, I was confused because I thought you said she was younger and she wasn't 65 yet to be able to get on Medicare. But in your case, it's a different scenario. So you want to know how to get her off of, she was covered on your insurance and you only had Medicare Part A, and you want to know how to get her on the rest of Medicare at this point in time when you retire, correct?
Right. When I had talked to Social Security when I was signing up, and I explained this scenario to them, and they go, well, being that she's on disability, even though she's going to be younger, her disability would automatically switch over to retirement with no penalty because she has been on disability.
Right.
So that she would have insurance.
Right.
So now we went to set up. We both received our medical Part A card. We both received them. Now we're waiting, and we were talking about the medical Part B, and we know we're going to have to get a supplemental plan.
Correct.
They told her that in order for her to get the medical Part B without penalty, she would have to prove that she was covered under my insurance. My current employer filled out the form. We sent it to Social Security, and they accepted that. And then they came back and they said, you need to prove that you had coverage from the year 2000 to the year 2011 is when I started my job that I'm retiring from.
So
and said that if I cannot prove that I have that she was covered under my insurance plan at my previous employer, that she would have to pay the penalty for every year that I can't approve it. So I called my previous employee's corporate office, which was Rite Aid, and they said, we only go back 10 years. We can't go back that far. And so then I asked who my insurance carrier was at that time, because these companies change plans all the time. And she said, you were covered under Aetna. So I called Aetna, and they were only able to go back a few years to prove that I had insurance through Aetna when I was employed with Rite Aid.
So you're saying you're having a hard time meeting their criteria. One other question before I turn you over to Attorney DeVecchio. I don't know if it's much of a legal question, but have you taken the time? What community are you in?
I'm trouble.
All right. Have you gone, like in Mahoning County, you can go down to the Social Security office downtown. Have you physically gone to the local Social Security office?
No, this has all been done through a phone call.
All right. Can I just make a suggestion to you? Go to downtown Youngstown to the local Social Security office with all of your paperwork and sit there and talk to an agent down there that might be able to assist you in person. All right. That would be the first thing I would recommend. Do not call. This is too complicated over the phone. Go to the office itself. We have one in downtown Youngstown and try to address it this way. And if you run into any issues, the next thing I would suggest, just from my standpoint, is call Congressman Ruley's office. Okay.
Okay, I know Mike Ruley.
All right, but the first thing is,
I know him because I work for a potato chip company.
Right. Okay, but sure. The first thing is you need to go to solve it yourself to the Social Security office in person. Stop doing it over the phone and document everything that you do. Take a legal pad, write down who you talk to, what their name is, what they say, and do it in person. Okay. Mark, anything you got?
I couldn't agree more. When you're in person, it's a lot easier to dismiss you over the phone and say that, well, we don't have those records. We can't get those records. It's a little harder if you're there in person. Clearly you were employed there. Clearly there's employment records. I mean, you could get your tax returns for as far back as you need them.
Well, that would be. Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. I think that was the next one of the questions they'd asked me. Well, you can get your tax records. So I called my tax accountant that does my taxes every year out of Champion, and he said, I only keep records for 8 years by law.
I would contact the IRS directly.
Well,
He said, I tried contacting the IRS to see if I can get copies of my W-2 forms, because all they need is just proof that I paid premiums. And I can't get a person at the IRS.
right.
I think if you there are forms that I'm aware of that you could fill out for the IRS. So I think if you go to the IRS website, there are forms, request forms, and you could fill out a form. And I don't know what the fee is. I don't know what the fee is involved. I know as it relates to Medicare and Medicaid, one of the things that I've always looked at are the earnings. So I know that, you know, they're going to look if you're earning more than 103,000 individually or 206,000 as a couple, you're going to pay higher premiums. I know that if your financial resources are limited, if you're below $30,000 a year, additional programs are available to lower your Medicare costs. So, you know, there's a lot of income-based questions. As far as employment, I would agree with Ron. Go to the Social Security office and check out the IRS website, go to forms, and see if there are forms there where you could order your whatever you would need them to provide.
But go downtown and be patient and take a legal pad and don't be a jerk, okay? And write everything down.
Right.
All right?
Well, how long would it take to get that from the IRS? Would it take longer? Because they gave me a deadline of December 7th.
I bet he wouldn't.
My wife.
Yeah, I mean,
I
you're
don't
up
know.
against it now, but you have to make every effort you can. So this isn't something you can delay. You're already, you know, weeks, if not months late trying to get this stuff. So I would make application as quickly as possible. And I would also find out if there's a way you could expedite it. You may be able to expedite. I know when I do things like filing LLCs and things like that, you could expedite those filings. You pay a little bit more of a filing fee, but you might be able to expedite it by paying more for copies of your returns.
But you got a not serious. You got a problem that can be addressed. Maybe they can waive it down there or figure it out down there. But I mean,
Okay.
I mean, that's the avenue to go. Talking on the phone doesn't cut it. Okay.
All right. I appreciate the help.
Let me
Good
know
luck,
how
sir.
You make out. I mean, yeah, I mean that's not necessarily a legal problem, but it certainly is a problem. But you deal with this kind of stuff all the time, Mark, and a lot of times when you call on a phone or something, you really don't get anybody that's
Or you,
in person is always better.
exactly. You get bad advice. A lot of times you don't know who you're talking to. You don't even know if they're qualified to give you the advice that they're giving. I would go to the source. I would go there in person. That was wonderful advice, Ron.
All right. So with attorney Mark DeVecchio, you're on the air tonight. Hello.
Yes, I have a question for Mark. And I don't want to talk to the Wizard of Oz or the Village Idiot, Ron. Oh, by the way, I got a costume that I made for Halloween, and it wasn't Ron Verb. It was a garbage can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Garbage.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now try to say something coherent and ask a legitimate question. All right. I
You know
this-
what? Here we go, Ron.
I mean, it could be tough, but go ahead. I'm counting on
Ron,
you.
I'm sharp. Listen, I could be sleeping. I'm smarter than you, buddy.
I know, but I want you to even try to excel more. Go ahead.
You know what, Ron? Okay. All right. When you're doing Halloween, I don't know what time it starts, because I got candy and I was going to give them to the kids, okay?
Mhm.
But I didn't know legally what time it started.
I
But
think
when you see people that are coming from across town, how do you deal with that, Mark?
well,
you give them candy.
yeah, you give it. I mean, I'm always suspicious when I see somebody trick or treating that has like a beard and a mustache and a receding hairline. You know, that causes me some concern. But you know, you're not vetting these.
Listen, I'm talking about a guy dressed up as a woman Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you give them some candy. What's the big deal? Are you that cheap?
Although I got to say this, Ron, I was going
Well,
to
I'm trying to act like Ron Bird. Yeah.
I was going to surprise
ahead,
my
Mark.
neighborhood kids, and I was going to get the full size Snickers bars and just give out full size candy bars. They're like $3 each, so I had to go with the
Yeah, you
bite
don't want to do
size.
that.
Yeah, those are. But anyway,
Right.
I think I recognize this voice. Enjoy the Halloween holiday. Laugh at the children. Make joy with the children. Have fun. These are great memories. I wouldn't get all hung up because they live, a mile away. Maybe they know people in the neighborhood. I mean, I know when we were kids, we would trick or treat through our neighborhood. And then our parents would drive us to where my grandmother lived on my mother's mother and my father's mother. We go trick or treating there. And we would fill up as much bags of candy as we could.
Right. Maybe you could dress up and go out yourself, David, as an intelligent caller. That'd be a hell of a costume.
Well,
for
wait
you.
a minute. Wait.
All right. I can't take him anymore. All right. News Radio 570 WKBN. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Ron.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to piggyback on that gentleman that you talked to about the Social Security.
Yes, sir.
I went through the same problem for 6 months. Got the runaround on an 800 number, and just so happened that John Carney was a congressman in Delaware at the time where I lived, and he was on talk radio. So I gave him a call and asked him the question. So he tells me to call his guy at the office. So I call, gives me a phone number. I talked to this woman, and the woman told me that calling the 800 number in Social Security, you're wasting your time because every time you call that number, you get somebody different, and nobody knows what they're doing. They don't have your information. So she said, once you call a congressman or a political person, it goes into an office over there, and they have to respond to that. And that's exactly after 6 months, 2 weeks with them, I had my checks.
Right. Well, that's what I
That's
told
true.
him. Call Ruley's office.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly. That's the best
first,
thing you could do.
but first, start at the Social Security office. First, start there. Try to solve your own problem, and then go from there.
And I didn't tell
All
him
right,
to call Social Security or the IRS. I told him to check the IRS website to see if what forms were required and to see if they could expedite it.
Right. Because a lot of times, as a divorce attorney, you got to get information from the IRS and that kind of stuff, right? But it takes time. to have
It
them
certainly
respond
does.
to
It
you.
does it. But eventually they do respond.
It might be next year, but sooner or later they get back to you. Unless you owe them money, Mark. If you owe them money, they want it right away.
They'll
just
call
so
you every
know.
day. Yeah, absolutely.
With attorney Mark DeVecchio on the Legal Show, brought to you by Beatrice Cop. You're on the air.
I want to know what kind of trick or treats you're giving out today.
Well, I'm giving out free legal advice to every little child who comes along.
And that has no sugar
Yeah,
or
I'm
calories.
sitting in an airport waiting to get on a plane.
Where are you going?
I'm coming back home.
From where?
Tampa.
Oh, you were at the Tampa office. Ladies and gentlemen, it's attorney David Beatrice, who now has a Florida law license. Were you trying a case down in Tampa, David?
Actually, I have a murder case down here that I'm handling. So I flew down to handle it, and I realized that big city lawyers are just like small city lawyers.
How so?
We're all lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just like being in any other courtroom. To be honest with you, I mean, after doing it 39 years, nothing really throws me a curveball anymore. It was like a huge cattle call, but very similar to what happens in Trumbull County or in other counties. It wasn't anything that I wasn't able to handle. Tough case, tough facts.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the press was there. It seems every time there's a camera, I'm always around it. So.
And did you present your case in front of a jury?
No, it was just what they call a disposition, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what we would call a pretrial, and a lot of evidence in the case, and a lot of stuff needs to be hashed out yet. But I flew down for it to Tampa Bay in a day, is what I say.
Well,
You
beautiful.
like that, Ron? You like that alliteration? Tampa Bay in a day is what I say.
No, I think it's fantastic. I mean, it's so you're down there, and basically, I don't want to say a murder trial is a murder trial. All the evidence is different, but I mean, you're not intimidated by being in another state or anything like that. You've done enough of
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not in the least.
Let me ask you this, Attorney DeVecchio. Since Dave will be flying back on an airplane, do you think you want to get in a pool? Will David have COVID by the weekend after he's done in the airport and on the airplane?
No, because I got vaccinated again. That'll drive all your drive all your listeners nuts.
But
you got vaccinated like 14 times.
I'm radioactive now, Ron.
Yeah, but you've been vaccinated all these times, and you still. Hang on, David. Hang on. I want to get back to him. He's sitting in an airport. I'll put him on hold and come back. Attorney David Beatrice, when we return.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
Just a little heads up before something.
I don't have a trial yet. I don't know if it's going to be a trial. We'll have to figure that part out. But boy, this Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department, they're all business down here. You should see how they write a report.
Good or detailed and good?
Very detailed, very good. I mean, they're like the alpha male of law enforcement down here, the Hillsbury County Sheriff's Department. Unlike Mahoning County, where we sort of have the Sheriff's Department, but they're not the dominant players. Sort of the other police departments are. They take the lead, as opposed to here, when something happens, the sheriff comes in and takes over the investigation.
Mm-hmm. So you won't know if you go to trial or something till you get through all of this kind of stuff and determine.
Well, there's 600 pages. There's 100 witnesses. A terabyte worth of video I have to go through. This was a victim that was murdered in broad daylight, and like I've been telling everyone, you'd be surprised how much you're on camera. Every day, no matter where you go, you're on camera. So the law enforcement now goes around and collects all these camera footages, especially on commercial property. And, we'll see how good the video is, whether you can make out whether my client was there or not. So far, we've pled not guilty. We're maintaining our innocence. We'll see where the evidence points us.
It is amazing, Attorney Beatrice, when you look at today's, just how far cameras have come from how they used to be to how they are. A lot of times you'll see police departments post on Facebook shoplifters that they're looking for. And it's almost they took a picture, from a professional photographer. You can see the person so clearly you can't get away with it anymore.
And what they have now developed, Ron, is what's called DNA fingerprinting. So when you touch an object, you leave your oil on that object. The science has progressed so far that they could do a swab with you and then take what you touched and see if your DNA is on what you touched just by you touching something. It's called DNA fingerprinting, and a lot of cases are solved that way. I have a case right now where they went into a home where my client owned the home and said, well, these drugs are your clients. I said, no, they're not. And they said, okay, well, let's see if his DNA shows up on the package. So they took my client's DNA, and they sent the drugs out to be DNA tested, and we'll see what the results are. But people don't realize how sophisticated the forensic science has gotten. So your phone, if I touched your phone and then put it down and then you touched it, they could finger or DNA profile that phone just by the oil your skin leaves. So when you touch something, you leave part of you on that thing you touch.
But
they can pick up your DNA from that. It's pretty amazing.
As a defense attorney, technology can be a blessing, I guess, but it can be a curse because your cell phone they can tell you a location. You have the camera.
Your cell phone is like a homing beacon. Okay, they know where you're at. They can triangulate the calls. They could see where you're online, and people think that, I deleted text messages. No, you didn't. If they go within so many days, they can go get even deleted text messages.
Really?
They stay in the cloud.
The digital thing. I told a client, I was in court with them on Tuesday. I said, if you're going to commit a crime and use a computer, that is the fingerprint of all fingerprints. They can go in and forensically examine your computer, see where it is, get that IP address, and boom. Just had a client who almost lost his freedom. They violated his bond and put him on an ankle bracelet because he did something on a computer and they knew it was him. And I look at my client, I said, what are you doing? You don't think they can find this stuff? I mean, don't be stupid. So you're on your phone is like a homing beacon. You're on cameras so much. They have pole cameras up now. Just drive around sometimes and look up on the red lights, where the red lights are. You'll see in high crime areas, they have pole cameras. They have cameras of cars everywhere. I know I'm sitting in an airport right now. There are probably 12 cameras around me. Okay. I mean, you're on camera so much you don't realize. If people only realize, you walk into any Giant Eagle, you walk into Walmart, you walk into any store, you're on that video. You're on that video. You're on the video in the parking lot. They have cameras out in the parking lots. You'd be surprised. People would be shocked if they knew how much they're on camera.
Right.
Really, they'd be shocked.
And it can be a blessing to prove you're innocent if you weren't there and you're innocent. But if you did do it, boy, it's a tough thing.
I'll tell you something. Even I exonerated a client because so eyewitness identification, Ron, is inherently unreliable and over-relied on by the juries. What do I mean by that? Juries will take an eyewitness testimony and think it's the gospel truth. So I had 5 eyewitness people one time say, my client was at this business and robbed them with a gun. At that same exact time, they had a grainy black and white video. And it looked like my client, but and also didn't look like her. But you had those 5 eyewitnesses saying that was her. At the very same time, she was at Walmart 8 hours away. I got the security camera, had it enhanced, and bingo, the jury exonerated her. Was not her. Without that Walmart video, my client would have been found guilty. No doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm. It is amazing. I mean, Mark, we could do an entire program of just Dave talking about cases that he's tried over the years and how technology has changed and how things have changed.
Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable how it has changed. It is, you'd be surprised how it has so much changed the landscape.
Right. And
So,
in defense of criminal defense attorneys, everybody's entitled to a defense. You can't hold it against an attorney. That's how our system works for trying to do the best defense he can do for whoever the client is.
everyone's entitled. Look, our system is based on liberty and freedom. People can't enjoy liberty and they can't enjoy freedom if they don't have due process of law. And due process of law means that you have a right to have access to the courts, and you have the obligation as the government, as contained in our Constitution and our founding documents, not to testify against yourself, and for your silence not to be used against you, and for the state to take away your freedom. They have to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by citizen juries, not professional juries, but by jury of your peers. So wherever you are, if you're in Mahoning County, you get Mahoning County jurors. If you're in Trumbull County, you get those are a jury of your peers who are objective, who have no skin in the game, and they're going to look at the case and they're going to take the instructions from the judge and determine your guilt or innocence based on what the judge tells them the evidence is. And they go back there, and sometimes they solve it right away. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they get it wrong. Is it perfect? No, but it's the best system. And I've examined a lot of judicial systems, a lot better than Russia. You want to talk about a kangaroo courts? Go to China, go to Russia, go to North Korea. Go to countries that don't give you due process of law, that don't cherish liberty and freedom. Go to those countries if you think they're so great.
But one of the big game changers, though, for anyone is the attorney that you hire, though. And I mean, there is a benefit to getting the best, and they usually are expensive to represent you.
Well, I wish I didn't have to say this, but it is true. Having lawyers, the wealthier you are, the better lawyers you can hire, and the more lawyers you can have it. So if I have a very difficult case and I could put 3 lawyers on it, you're going to get a better shot at a defense than someone who can't hire 3 lawyers. And that's just the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the courts are the great level playing field, because no matter how powerful of a person you are, you can always be dragged into court and be held accountable for your actions. And that's the great thing about our courts. And that's the great thing about the rule of law, that it should apply equally to everyone, and everyone should be held accountable for whatever actions they do, and everyone should be given due process, and everyone has a right to a defense. Everyone has a right to make the government prove them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Everyone has a right to a jury trial. Everyone has a right not to testify, and they have a right for the prosecutor not to comment on their right not to testify. Those are founding principles in a document that's 250 years. The longest serving constitutional republic in the history of the world. That's how amazing that American Constitution is. And that's how much we should cherish it and protect it.
Just to ask you another question, just bear with me for a second, Mark. When you go visit clients, Dave, whether they're in a county jail or in prison somewhere, is it an eye-opening experience that there used to be a thing called scared straight years ago for young kids. When you go look at these areas where people go, what's your impression of it? remember Scared Straight?
So I'm gonna sound like a lefty to you when I say this, but we're wasting a whole lot of money incarcerating people, and we're not having a dent in the crime. Okay, and so we have to come up with better ways to spend our money. We know at-risk children. We know we could pretty much statistically guess who's going to be at risk and who's not going to be at risk. Are we going to be really good at it? Not really good, but we're pretty good at it. We should inject government earlier into these people's lives so they don't go to a life of crime. Because we're going to deal with these people one way or another. We're going to be paying for these people one way or another. Okay? And so we have massive incarcerations in the United States. We incarcerate more citizens per 100,000 than any other country in the world. And and Ron, you and I are about the same age. You can remember 1976, Ron? Because I can.
Yeah.
Okay? In 1976, there were 250,000 Americans in our state, local, and federal prisons. 250,000. Now there's over 2 million. And I want to ask you, you think that's a good use of our money? You feel any safer now than you did in 1976?
Well,
Or you feel less safe?
I do think you have to lock up violent criminals that, you know.
I absolutely agree with that.
I mean,
you have
but
to lock up violent criminals.
it sounds
Violent
like
people should be in jail.
Right.
But non-violent people, they
Right.
should not be in jail.
I would agree with that. It's almost like a double standard when you talk about white collar crime and that kind of stuff. But I agree with you. Jail should be for violent criminals. And
People that you need to remove from society should be incarcerated. But we've taken it to a level that I never thought we'd see. We have over 2 million people. At any time in this country, there's 500,000 people, 500,000 citizens. These are Americans now in awaiting trial. All these people that scream about bail reform. Well, if you don't let the people out, you have to stick them in jail. And they could be in there a year or two before their case is tried. And if you believe that everyone's innocent until proven guilty, if that applies to you, Ron, it applies to me, and it applies to the worst of us, and it applies to the best of us. And so you see these states that are trying to reform the bail system, and yeah, there are hiccups in it, sure are. But 500,000, you know, we're paying. I mean, how much money we have to pay to incarcerate a person a year? We could put them through Harvard at cheaper rates.
Mm-hmm.
You know how much it costs us taxpayers to take violent people and put them in prison? And I think violent people should be in prison. But do I think we need to have 2.4, 2.5 million people in our prison system? No, I think that's a huge waste of taxpayer dollars. When you really boil down the cost of it.
What do you then what do you do with a drug dealer? Let's say, I mean, they wouldn't be violent.
Well, most. So here's the misnomer. So many people that are addicts are dealers, and they're not massive drug dealers. They're like dealing drugs to support their habit. Okay. But if they get caught with so much drugs, they're considered a major drug offender and they go into prison, as opposed to a Pablo Escobar or someone like that is truly a drug dealer and is violent and making hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. There's a difference between that and an addict. But an addict, I have never known an addict that was convicted as being a drug dealer that is not an addict. The reason that they have so much drug on them is to support their own habit. So if you catch a guy with so much fentanyl or so much heroin, and he's giving some out and he's making money for himself to support his habit. You know, these drugs are a scourge on us because what happens chemically is you change your brain. And so people don't choose. I know this sounds a little lefty to you, Ron. People don't choose to be drug addicts. They choose not to be what's called dope sick. So if you're an addict and you're addicted to a narcotic, your body gets sick. You get physically sick if you don't have that substance. And just down into a drain you go. And you just keep spiraling downward and downward till you either wind up in prison, you're either dead, or you kick the habit. And kicking the habit's really hard because relapsing is part of recovery. And I've seen the system. Judge Durkin, God bless him. I mean, he was a pioneer in drug court, and he runs a very successful drug court. But there are times when you can't get people into a drug court just because they have too much drugs on them and they're considered a drug dealer. That's just our system.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, Attorney
Well, Mark,
Beatrice.
you hold down the fort. I'll be back there in a couple hours.
Gotcha,
I'm about
Dave.
to jump on my plane.
All right, safe
Dave,
travels.
Dave, you're fascinating. I appreciate you making time for us. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
I mean, Mark, I'm going to tell you, you know why Beatrice is a good lawyer? Because as he's sitting there talking, I could listen to him for another hour
He's
when he
captivating.
talks about that. I mean, you know, I get emails from people that say, you know, Dave could be a law professor. You know, he could teach. I get emails from people, you know, Dave should be a prosecutor. Dave should be a judge or something like that. But, you know, I mean, Dave enjoys what he does as running his firm and doing what he does. All right. Some more calls with Attorney DeVecchio. You're on the air. Hello, line 2. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. What's your question, please?
I have a question about divorce and a name change.
All right.
Okay. I was divorced way back in 95, and I was supposed to go back to my maiden name, and somehow it didn't get in the divorce decree.
All right.
So I need to find, what do I need to do to legally change my name back to my maiden name, because I need it for the Navy to get my DD-214 changed.
All right. Mark, comment, please.
It's a very good question. Unfortunately, the ship has sailed. You could be restored to a maiden name in your judgment entry or your divorce decree granting your divorce. Once that is signed, once that time passes, the only way you could change your name is by making application to probate court. So you could apply to probate court, or I think you could call the Social Security office as well and ask for a name change. They're going to do some vetting to find out why you want to change your name, and you're not doing it to escape prosecution or to avoid debt collectors. But you could petition the probate court. It's not a very difficult thing to do. Unfortunately, you're too far removed from your divorce for the domestic relations court to do anything for you.
All right. So
Okay.
probate court
Now-
is where you go.
All right. Now, my driver's license, my Social Security card, and my VAID card all have my maiden name.
Okay.
So
But that's not your legal name.
that's what I was trying to find out.
Yes, as I indicated, there are forms that you file in probate court, and I believe there's also a government agency you could call, and they will change your name once you prove that you're doing it for legitimate reasons and not to avoid prosecution or debt collection, things like that.
All right.
So if you want, give me a call at the office and I'll walk you through it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With Attorney Mark DeVecchio, you're on the air at 5:52. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, I have a really good friend that their mom is in a nursing home. It's been probably like a couple years. She gets Social Security and some kind of trust, which of course it all goes to pay for the nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she has a credit card. She has credit card debt, and we asked if an attorney suggested. First, somebody said have her just file bankruptcy because of course she can't pay it, and you know, it doesn't matter that her credit's going to get ruined. But then another attorney said, just don't file bankruptcy. Just don't do anything. Just let it go. What is the best way to handle that?
I don't know that there's a best way. There are multiple ways to do it. By saying just let it go and don't pay it, sometimes the debt collectors lose their wind and they won't pursue you. Is she elderly? Is she infirmed? Is she ill?
Well, she's in a nursing home. She can't walk. She can't.
How old is she?
82, I think.
Okay.
That's, there's some merit to saying just don't pay it. Let them come after you. Let them sue you. When it gets to that point, I mean,
well, they won't really come after. I mean, the credit card's in her name only.
Right.
So
When he says you, he means her.
I mean her. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
once, if you get served a complaint, a civil complaint, well, we could deal with it then. but you're buying yourself. It may not be a problem dependent on, and I hate to say this, but her life expectancy. So she's in a nursing home. She's elderly. There's a chance that they might not catch up to her in her lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
How much does she owe, caller?
I think the balance is probably about 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if the debt remains unpaid and she passes on, I would not open an estate for at least 6 months, because if you wait 6 months, your debt collectors, all your debts would go away. They have to file a claim against your estate, and they have 6 months to do it. If you wait 6 months before you open the estate, I think you could prevent them from attaching the assets. So
Well, once she passes, do you always have to open an estate? I mean, she
No.
has no assets.
well, then you don't even have to open an estate. I wouldn't even. Then that's probably decent advice. I don't know if it's the right advice, but I think it'll get you where you want to go. It would relieve her. There's some merit into not filing a bankruptcy action when you're 82 years old and in a nursing home. It's not very pragmatic. I mean, the easier case would be ignore it. Chances are that the debt will outlive the person. And if there's no assets, well, then there's no sense in making a big deal out of it.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
When I hear she's 82, that's the average age of a band member in a house band, 82.
Not this one. I bring the medium age way down. And that's why when I get asked questions about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, you're catching me. I mean, I'm decades away from that stuff. So it just doesn't apply to me, Ron. So, I'll worry about that in 20 years when I have to.
I thought, weren't you guys, your next gig, something at the Eastwood Mall, or weren't you doing something?
Oh, November Rain. November Rain. Are you coming out? I thought you were going to introduce us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me when, what is November Rain? Or
November Rain is a wonderful event put on by the Eastwood Mall. It is probably one of the best fireworks show you are going to see this side of the 4th of July. There's 2 bands that take the stage. They run the fireworks with a local radio station, and they play songs to align themselves with the fireworks. You have 2 local bands that are going to perform, the house band being one, and another band, I call them the House Band Junior, but it's RDNA that is going to perform. So you have both bands. They start at 6:30, and the fireworks go off at 9.
And when in November does this happen?
This Saturday, free admission. There are food trucks, beverage trucks. It's a wonderful family event.
So that's this coming Saturday.
This
in
coming
the parking
Saturday
lot of the Eastwood Mall.
In the parking lot of the Eastwood Mall, at the far end of the Eastwood Mall, not on the where there's restaurants and there's a little strip plaza at one end. It's at the other end of the mall.
All right, so that's this Saturday. What time does it start, Mark?
The bands go on at 6:30. Fireworks at 9:00.
All right, so this Saturday, free, the house band, and I hear a lot about this young and upcoming band, this RDNA. I hear that they're not bad.
Well, they've had great influences, I think.
Yes, I've heard that as well. All right, so you're on the air with our attorneys tonight. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, what's your question, please?
Yes, I was calling. My husband was in a nursing home over in Ohio. I'm from Pennsylvania, and he's on Medicare, and he had co-insurance that's due. Now, I signed his admission paperwork as the responsible party when he went into the nursing home. Now, am I solely responsible for that medical debt, that medical Medicare co-insurance? Or is that something that he would be responsible for?
Well, it depends on what you signed, number one. Number two, the fact that you signed anything does open you up to some liability. Number three, you're married. You identified him as your husband, so it's a marital debt. So I cannot sit here and tell you that they will not go after you and that you're free and clear. It depends on what document you signed. You may have obligated yourself to pay it.
Okay, yeah, it was just like it was a responsible party, and like it told me like that, beginning on day 21, he was going to have this co-insurance due. And I signed everything because he was just being admitted, so I didn't think anything of it. And now, we have this debt of a couple $1,000s.
Well, when
And
you
we were just trying to think,
when you sign as a responsible party, you are authorizing that you will be responsible for the debt, that you are co-responsible for the debt.
Or certainly have the documents reviewed or sit down and read them. Hey, thank you. Appreciate your call. Mark, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Ron.
The one and only. The best family law lawyer around. One of the best lawyers around, attorney Mark DeVecchio. On the Legal Show, brought to you by Beatrice Cop.
Portions of the following program will be recorded.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably. Are you sure?